Should you buy Fender's new American Ultra Luxe Vintage series? I played all the guitars and I'll tell you. Hey, it's John here from Play and Trade Guitars, and if you like new guitar reviews and informative buyer's guides just like this one, make sure you hit subscribe and join this community of guitar players. And if you're in the market for an Ultra Luxe Vintage or any other gear, click to buy new gear using my link. You'll find it pinned below, or you can scan this QR code and shop on your smartphone. All right, I'm gonna break it down for you. All four guitars. I've got the 50s Tele and Strat and the 60s Tele and Strat, and I'll also give you some great comparable options which are more affordable. And at the end of this, I'll tell you which was my favorite so far. I'm gonna have individual videos for each guitar in this series, and I'll tell you what you absolutely must know before you buy one of the new Ultra Luxe Vintage guitars. So let's dive into it. All right, so here is the 50s Ultra Luxe Vintage Tele. Vintage aesthetic with modern playability. But my favorite spec I'll give you out of the gate is the fact that they're using vintage voice single coil pickups instead of noiseless. These are the same pickups which are found in the American Vintage 2 series. So for example, you have the 51 pure vintage Tele pickups in this guitar, the same as you would find on, for example, the 1951 Telecaster in the American Vintage 2 line. But where we differ from American Vintage 2 in the Ultra Luxe Vintage is the super modern playability of this guitar. What you're going to get out of the gate here, Fender locking tuners, a satin feel on the nitro finish, which makes for a nice smooth playing experience, a much flatter radius, modern 10-inch in cowboy territory, up to a very flat 14-inch compound radius in the upper fret register for playing fast and flat on this neck. Now I will tell you that all the nuts on these guitars measured 1.7 inches, which is a little wider for a Fender. And you can feel on some of these examples that the neck does certainly feel a bit wider with that modern D shape. But you get things like stainless steel frets, you get glow-in-the-dark fret markers if you're on a dark stage, and you can check out the heirloom finish checking, which they did on these guitars, particularly on the body. You got the water slide decal, Fender Telecaster, modern truss rod adjustment, locking Fender tuners, a wider 1.7-inch nut, 0.86 inches at the first, up to 0.89 inches at the 12th. So here with the electronics, you have the S1 switch. Engaging the S1 switch will give you series on both pickups, bypassing the three-way switch. And while we're looking at the back, you're gonna see this sculpted heel, and you get a comfort cut on this guitar. Ash body with a nitrocellulose finish, vintage vibe with that black guard, but then this is very modern. You have 6 saddle with modern intonation, and on the 50s example, you have the brass 6 saddle design, which is pretty cool. And now you have traditional Telecaster controls, except you have the addition of the S1 switch. And the S1 switch delivers one fantastic tone in the Telecaster, and that is taking both of the single coil pickups and putting them in series. What that ultimately does is give you a high output humbucker effect. Let's take a look at the 50 Strat. And I think they did a great job with this guitar. This particular 50 Strat was actually one of my favorite of the 4 that I played. You've got the 6 saddle, modern design, 2-point modern tremolo system instead of a vintage setup. But then you get the vintage vibe, both from that nitrocellulose finish and the details, including the 57 pure vintage single coil pickups. S1 switch on the Strat adds 2 great tones. So you have a traditional Strat 1 through 5 position selector, but when you engage the S1 switch on the volume, you're gonna add 2 additional positions. In position 1 or 6, you're gonna have kind of the Gilmore mod of having both the bridge and neck on at the same time, which I love and does not come on a stock Strat. Position 2 or 7 with the S1 engaged is gonna put all 3 pickups on at the same time, which is pretty cool effect. All right, let's check out the 60s in this series. This is one of my favorite aesthetics right here. Check this out. They went with the custom Telecaster look, so you have a bound body, unbelievably nice sunburst on this guitar with that lacquer checking. And they went with, of course, a rosewood fretboard on the 60s series. And this is just a nice guitar. This is the guitar I mentioned of all 4 that I played. This guitar felt, while I was playing, it had a noticeably wider feeling neck. Even though, again, in theory, all these guitars are supposed to basically have exactly the same neck from a playability standpoint. But here you're going to have the 63 pickups, but subtle differences here. You have steel saddles instead of brass, and of course you still have that contour, but I love the addition of that bound body, which is just fantastic. Another cool thing that I like that they did with the maple in these necks is the tint of the actual maple and the nitrocellulose finish. I love on a Fender when that actual tint of the maple is darker instead of some of the newer examples out of Fender. Sometimes you see it has that really white maple look, and I prefer this particular tint. And it is pretty cool that when you look close, you can see some of the finish checking as well. So I thought that that was a nice visual touch. All right, I probably saved the best for last. Now on these brighter metallic finishes, you can really see more of that heirloom finish checking in the nitrocellulose finish. And it really is tastefully done and a cool effect. This was probably my favorite guitar of all four that I played. It was nice and lightweight at around 7.6 pounds. And it just has all the performance features that I would choose if I was looking for a stage-ready, high-end Fender experience. To me, locking tuners are a must to make it easy to change strings quickly. Rosewood, I really prefer actually the feel of rosewood. I know that maple can be a bit snappier, but I personally as a player, I like the 60s vibe with rosewood on a Fender. I'm just super into that. And here you go, the body is alder, routed for a humbucker also if you wanted to make the mod in bridge and neck position. And just a sleek, sexy Strat with the modern 2-point tremolo and 6-saddle design. A guitar like this is going to give you stage-ready, modern performance, but with a vintage aesthetic. And these really do look like custom shop guitars, if you ask me. They come with beautiful hard shell cases, but they are pricey. So what I'm gonna do now is show you not only these guitars as we shop and do some comparison shopping, I'll show you some affordable alternatives as well and give you my take. So let's dive in now. I'll remind you, if you're in the market for any of these guitars, buy any new gear using my link. You support this channel when you buy gear using my link, and I really appreciate it. And it's a win-win because you get fast free shipping and easy payment plans. If you're buying a guitar like this, high-end, top-shelf Fender, it's a lot easier when you take advantage of no-interest payment plans. It's not a credit card, it's a no-interest payment plan. You can break it up over time. Buying high-end gear just got a lot easier. Check that out. All right, let's take a look at some other alternatives. All right, let's go shopping. I'll go from 50s to 60s, Ultra Luxe Vintage 50s Telecaster, $29.99. Yes, steep for a Fender, but they are certainly going for the market of boutique high-end builders, perhaps like Tom Anderson or Nash Guitars, and also comparably now looking at custom shop editions from Fender. But check out this white blonde, which is fantastic. It reminds me of the American Vintage 2 series. And you can also compare the guitars in stock and get a breakdown of the actual look, as well as, importantly, the weight. So you see this one's 8.4, whereas this one is 7.5 pounds. Taking a look at the 50 Strat, you're at $28.49 in Sunburst, $29.99 in white blonde. So you can see that they do vary a little bit in price depending on the finish. That white blonde is absolutely fantastic. And like I said, the solid colors, I think you'll see a little bit more of that finish checking going on. 60 series, $29.99, 3-color Sunburst or Lake Placid Blue. And then the 60 Strat, Ice Blue as I showed you, or this really cool Surf Green. And again, they're the same pickups that you'd find in the American Vintage 2 series. So let's just talk briefly differences between this and American Vintage 2. Vintage 2 is gonna be spot-on recreations year by year of iconic legendary models. So a 1951 Telecaster is going to have the more rounded neck profile and the more vintage-inspired radius of 7.25, more pronounced hump, and more vintage fret wire. It's going to have the 3 brass saddle or barrel design instead of the 6 modern. And it's not going to have things like the S1 switch. This is going to be for the vintage enthusiast looking for a collectible style guitar, or someone who doesn't want to bring a priceless 1951 Telecaster on stage. They went the distance with this series and I love it. And that's what I love about what Fender did with Ultra Luxe, is they took the whole heart and soul of American Vintage 2 and they gave it modern playability in terms of that neck shape. So that's a big deal. You can save some money out of the gate if you really are after the Vintage series. Also, the Vintage 2 is going to have a gloss finish, whereas you have the satin finish on the neck of the new Ultra Luxe Vintage. Now, don't confuse Ultra Luxe Vintage with Ultra, because Ultra is going to be something totally different. Here, for example, is the Ultra 2 Tele. It's a lot less money at $22.99. I don't know if anyone could love that solar flare. Let's look at Texas T, because I think it looks better. But I'll tell you what, $22.99, the thing to understand, the difference here, this is an ebony board, which is super cool in a Tele. But where I kind of take a deep breath and go, oh, yeah, but I wish, my wish is that they did not put noiseless pickups on here. So I am ecstatic that they went with the vintage voiced pickups on the new series. But $22.99, and I want to point out that for a limited time, you can get 10% off this guitar when you add it to the cart. So many people like noiseless pickups. Nothing wrong with it, especially if you play with higher gain, it's a great thing. And you can even save 10% for a limited time, so check that out. Now, The guitar that always shines in my book, the series that shines, is American Professional 2. Let's just say it's roughly 40% less, and they're on sale right now. You can save 10% on my favorite series, American Professional 2, and the Professional 2 Strat. And here's the other important thing. Those also have the S1 switch with the same capabilities that you'll find in the new Ultra Luxe Vintage. If you're a vintage enthusiast, I would choose Vintage 2, the series Vintage 2, over this. If you want a top shelf kind of boutique feel in an all-in-one Fender guitar, they have done a great job with this series if you want to spend the money. And I'll tell you what, if you want to spend a lot less and get a great playing experience, professional experience from Fender, go check out Professional 2, the series which is currently on sale, marked down 10%. Tell me what you think of this new series and approach by Fender. I think they did a great job. If you're shopping any gear, scan this QR code. You can shop on your smartphone, or you can click any of the links pinned in the comments or down below in the description. And remember, hit subscribe so you don't miss any new videos on this channel. In fact, this Gibson Les Paul right here is going to one of you very soon. Sign up down below for that giveaway, and I'm giving that away when we hit 100,000 subscribers. Thanks for being here on the channel. Until next time, I'm John from Plain Trade Guitars. See you next time, and keep playing.